Hi everyone, Bill Duvendack here with the June 2024 monthly astrological preview video. So grab your cuppa, take a deep drink, and get cozy because June is gonna be a trip, and I mean that in the most fun way. So first of all, let's start off with recent events to set the stage, shall we? The big news is that finally, Jupiter is out of Taurus. It's into Gemini. Now, aspects aside, one of the bigger things that happened while Jupiter was in Taurus is the conjunction with Uranus. And that is one of the reasons things have been kind of crazy for the last, several weeks, astrologically speaking. There's other events that have gone hand in hand with that I've talked about in various places, so I won't get into that here. But I pointed out because that conjunction is now done. There is no longer a blending of chaos, a trait of Uranus, corresponding with prosperity and the expansion of consciousness. Now we can look forward. Now we can look to bigger things. One of the problems with Taurus is that it's a fixed earth sign. So a lot of the unexpected had to do with the physical plane. Now we move into a space with Jupiter in Gemini that it's all about prosperity and the expansion of consciousness coming through the short conversations you have with others. Networking is a good thing to do in general for the whole month. Looking for opportunities through the people you know. Maybe a 30-second elevator pitch pays off when it wouldn't have before. So there's a lot to keep in mind with Jupiter moving through Gemini. But don't delude yourself into thinking that everything is coming up roses. Because if you're a certain astrological sign, such as any one of the mutables, this could be a very challenging period. The first starts off with Sun conjunct Venus, which recently entered into Gemini as well, and that's going to be lasting until about the 8th or so. With the Sun conjunct Venus, it tells us now is a time that you might feel all the good things, whether it's love, whether it's optimism, whether it is money easily flowing to you, whatever the case may be. So right there, right off the bat, on the 1st, June starts off with a very positive vibe in the air. Now that same conjunction is sextiling the moon conjunct the north node of the moon in Aries. A sextile is a gently flowing aspect, so when you have this occurring, it's saying that the more optimistic you are, the more positive you are, the more that you embrace creativity and romance and all those feel-good vibes, the more it can carry you to your spiritual growth and good. Also on that day, we've got Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and that requires a little bit of conversation because Mercury is personal communication, Uranus is mass communication. Mercury is talking to someone one-on-one through your daily life when you're out and about. Uranus is using the internet and the World Wide Web. Magically, Mercury is the planet of consciousness, and Uranus is the consciousness of the higher self, or the ascended self, if you will. So you have an opportunity on June 1st to make a deeper connection with that part of your soul that transcends just this lifetime. We've also got Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries, and this one can be a little bit of a pain, because Chiron represents the wound. While it's been traveling through Aries, it's been telling us to address our own inner psychological wounds and states of being and attitudes that we have towards the self. And Mars comes along and says, yeah, you know all those wounds you've been healing? Well, today they're going to fire up and they're going to be extra big and thrown in your face, whether you want them to be or not. So when you connect the dots here, it's saying for the first, keep things lighthearted and fun, look for opportunities, but also expect your own wounds to be thrown back in your face. Now, for the weak-willed, this would mean, oh my God, this opportunity's here, but I can't do it, lowly old me. And that's the bullshit thought to get rid of. Why not? A piece of wisdom I learned from the Hindu god Shiva many years ago is that oftentimes people fail because they don't think big enough. And in order to think big enough and succeed big enough, you have to have confidence in yourself. Now, as you can tell, and what's inferred from everything I've been saying so far, is that on the first, we've got a stellium in Gemini. There are 3 planets, Jupiter, Venus, and the Sun in Gemini. And there's a stellium in Taurus, with the moon, the north node of the moon, and Mars all in Aries. A stellium in Aries, not a stellium in Taurus. Excuse me while I drink more coffee. Anywho, the good news is with these 2 stelliums in Gemini and Aries, it tells us that overall things are going to be flowing very, very smooth on the first, with a lot of potential for forward motion, forward progress, and simply getting the job done and moving ahead. Also on that day, Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is sextiling that moon in Aries, which is conjunct the north node of the moon. So this is a good time to use those small conversations to do your part for social change. That's a big one right there. Social change is a trait of Pluto in Aquarius. And with the moon here, it's saying, listen to your intuition, let your spirituality be your guide, and you might just be surprised how many lives you impact in a positive way. Also, we've got that same Pluto retrograde in Aquarius forming a trine to Jupiter in Gemini, telling us that this is a good day to lay the foundation for what you want to achieve when it comes to interpersonal relationships for the entirety of the whole month. Now, and that particular trine between Pluto and Jupiter is going to last through solstice. So you get just about 3 weeks of working with that energy. And that also brings us to an important point to remember, not just for this video, but for the whole month, which is that a lot of the planets involved in the aspects that we're going to talk about are slower moving planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And because they're slower moving, these aspects that I talk about are going to be in effect for weeks at a time. Now on the second, we've got that same Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries, but now the moon joins it. So if you think your psychological wounds were thrown in your face on the first, they're only going to blossom and get bigger on the second. So watch out for that. Also be careful that your emotions do not cloud your judgment when it comes to your healing journey or interacting with others because of the stelliums involved. That north node of the moon in Aries is sextiling the Sun-Venus conjunction in Gemini. So your ability to get along with others is going to positively impact your spiritual growth if you handle things correctly. On the third, Mercury moves into Gemini, joining the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter, which means the evening of the second and the early part of the third may feel like a mini retrograde, but it's only going to last for a few hours. And that Mercury in Gemini makes a conjunction to Jupiter in Gemini. So Mercury is the planet of personal communication. Jupiter is the planet of prosperity and consciousness. When you have this conjunction, it tells us that by talking to the right people and saying the right things, you may put yourself in a position for not only spiritual growth, but also financial success too. The moon is in Taurus on that day, and it forms a square to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So you might find that if you stubbornly hold on to tradition, it causes problems when getting along with society. It also tells us that if you want to stick with the tried and true because it's always worked, you're probably going to miss out on some opportunities. And generally, that thought, it should be done this way because it's always been done this way, is a toxic thought. Now, if it's always been done this way because it's good and because it's positive, that's another story. But if it's just it's going to be done this way because it's always been done this way, that idea is bullshit. And I think we all know it. And if you don't know it, I'm glad you're listening to this video to pick up on it. Also on the 3rd, Uranus in Taurus is sextiling Neptune in Pisces. And that particular aspect is going to be in play through the entirety of the whole month. Uranus is the planet of the unexpected. Earlier, I called it the planet of chaos. It's also the planet of mass communication. Taurus is the sign of tradition. And when it's sextiling Neptune in Pisces, it's telling us now is a good time to focus on imagining your life and being open to how it manifests daily. So, for example, for those of you that use a creative visualization board, the 3rd is a good day to spend a little bit more time with it. And then when you get done and you go out and about in your daily life, don't assume that the unexpected is going to be negative. So bringing your creative impulses down into tangible results is a good way to approach the 3rd. On the 4th, we've got the moon conjunct Uranus and Taurus. As I've said many times before, Taurus is the planet of food, diet, exercise, the daily humdrum of life. And when the moon is conjunct it, it's saying, be careful what you eat. You might get food poisoning. Be careful of overeating and overindulgence in physical things. But also it's saying, listen to your intuition, because your intuition is probably bringing you impulses from your higher self. Also on the 4th, the Sun in Gemini is squaring Saturn in Pisces. That's going to be around until about the 12th, so you got a good week of that. The fact that they are square means there's going to be challenges and growth opportunities when it comes to learning spiritual lessons and dealing with karma. So I'll give a good generic example here to highlight this. With the Sun in Gemini squaring Saturn in Pisces, it's saying that you might have spiritual lessons thrown in your face to learn from, but the Sun in Gemini says you might treat them too flippantly, and they're going to come back to be worse later. Or perhaps the Sun in Gemini is saying, I'm focused on a million different things. And Saturn in Pisces comes along and says, well, you're failing. Focus on this one thing first and foremost. Sometimes Saturn's the grumpy old man. Also on the 4th, we've got Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, trining Mercury in Gemini. So it's a good day to use your communication skills to cause changes in your circles of friends. It's also a good day to connect with the vibe of society at large, to make sure you're on the same page with them, or if you're not on the same page, understanding why you're not. And we still have that Aries and Gemini stellium, but now, like I hinted at with the 3rd, there's 4 planets in Gemini now. You see, for those of you that watch these routinely, you know in April and really late March, it was all about Pisces stelliums and Aries stelliums. Then in April, it became more weighted to Aries stelliums. And then the tail end of May, it became weighted to Aries and Taurus stelliums. And now we have that shift from Taurus stelliums to Aries stelliums, back for a brief bit, and Gemini stelliums. The reason this matters is if you remember basic chemistry, air feeds fire. Gemini is an air sign. Aries is a fire sign. So you can expect a lot of activity the first week of June. Things are going to be popping off pretty fast, pretty busy. The more that you think things through, the more you can specifically coordinate your actions to align with it. But it also means don't be surprised if your words carry more weight with others during this time than normal. One of the ways to look at the Aries Gemini stelliums is somebody says something and it gets an immediate emotional response that does not work out well. Now, the drawback to these 2 stelliums is that everything's happening fast. Nothing's really going to be proceeding slowly. So it's going to require more discipline on your part, more being grounded on your part. On the 5th, that Gemini stellium grows from 4 to 5, so that you could consider this the pinnacle of Gemini energy for the month. On one hand, all this emphasis on Gemini is great. It's all about variety. It's all about personal communication. It's all about having conversations to getting things done and keeping things light and lighthearted and superficial and very shallow. And that's also the bad side. If you're a deep thinker, if you're a deep person, the 5th may get on your fucking nerves because everything is shallow. There's no depth to anything. So watch out for that. Also, if you want something to have staying power in your life, this is not the time to put that into practice. Now is the time to be shallow, be superficial, have lighthearted fun, have conversations, but don't necessarily expect them to go anywhere other than instant gratification. We've still got the Venus conjunct the Sun in Gemini, but now it's squaring Saturn in Pisces until the 10th, so we got a good 5 days of that. A good phrase to outline Venus conjunct Sun squaring Pisces is that you might be seeing things through rose-colored glasses, so you might be looking at ideals and then you get let down by them. Or perhaps it's spiritual bypassing or spiritual denial, where you've got a problem going on, but you're like, I'm gonna bury my head in the sand spiritually and just act like it's not there, and eventually it'll go away. And Saturn comes along to say, no. Face it. You know, this goes back to a social media backlash that I have seen many times over the last 7 or 8 years or so, which is in the early parts of this century, the idea of things being problems was really kind of attacked by extremists. So instead of saying problems, the politically correct phrase to use was growth opportunities. And now the backlash has been, no, sometimes they're fucking problems. Just accept it, use the language, and deal with it. That kind of idea is what we're talking about on the 5th. If a problem comes up, don't bury your head in the sand. You can look at it optimistically, but also understand there's a problem. Not everything is a growth opportunity. Some problems are just straight up problems, and that becomes apparent on the 5th through the 10th. On the 6th, we got the new moon in Gemini, so it's all about new beginnings when it comes to conversations. One of the ways I like to look at this is if you have been wanting to change your communication style, the 6th is a good time to do it. If you've been wanting to start new conversations with people outside of your network and skills and industries, this is a good time to do it. Also on the 6th, we've got the moon conjunct the sun, which is the new moon, but it's also conjunct Venus. And I point this out because some of those new conversations you might start eventually lead to money in your pocket, increased creativity, maybe even some fun romance. The romance might not last, but it will still be there, so it will be Mr. or Mrs. Right now, not Mr. or Miss Right. See what I did there? It's an old phrase I'm surprised I don't hear more people saying. You don't have to be Mr. or Ms. Right, you just have to be Mr. or Ms. Right now. That idea is encapsulated at this time of the new moon. And all of that activity, that triple conjunction there in Gemini, is squaring Saturn in Pisces. So be lighthearted and fun. Just be careful not to get too embroiled with it to the degree that you don't address spiritual issues that are going on and emotional issues that are going on. Or maybe you're so scattered that it works against you because you're not looking at any depth. Few different ways to look at it, but it does give a word of warning. On the 7th, the moon moves into Cancer and is sextiling Mars in Aries. It's a good day to get stuff done around the house. It's a good time to spend with your immediate family and close loved ones. It's a good time to start do-it-yourself projects. But that same moon in Cancer is also squaring Neptune in Pisces. So it's saying, yes, take the initiative in all of those things, but don't be delusional about it. have reasonable expectations of what you can accomplish. On the 8th, that same moon in Cancer moves to a trine with Saturn in Pisces. So you can see how it shifts from all these challenges I've been talking about for the last few days having to do with Saturn in Pisces to all of a sudden something good. When you've got the moon in Cancer trining Saturn in Pisces, it's saying this is a good day to lay the foundation for deeper emotional connection with loved ones and others. It's also a good day for those of you that are magically inclined to go through an initiatic process, whether it's formal or recognizing an initiatic pattern that is in play in your life at this time. The moon in Cancer on the 8th is also squaring Chiron in Aries. So you may find that the deep conversations you have with close loved ones and family members irritate your wounds. And keep in mind, it's not necessarily their fault that your wounds are irritated. You're not responsible for your wounds, but you are responsible for your healing. You are responsible to your reaction when those wounds get triggered. And on the 8th, the sun in Gemini is sextiling Chiron in Aries. So it's telling us the more that you look at these psychological wounds that are exposed, if you're emotionally detached about it, you can figure out a way to deal with them in a better method. But if your emotions cloud your judgment, you ain't gonna get shit that's positive out of it. On the 9th, we've got Mars moving into Taurus, which means the evening of the 8th and the early part of the 9th, you might be accident prone as Mars changes signs. So be extra careful with what you're doing. Also, make sure you don't have a short temper. The moon in Cancer has now moved into a trine with Neptune in Pisces. It's a good day for meditation. It's a good day for psychic development. It's a good day to understand the power of love and the power of emotions and how they can positively or negatively affect others. We've also got the moon in Cancer squaring that Mars in Taurus. So the people that you've been focusing on for the last 2 or 3 days, your immediate family, your close loved ones, now they might just get on your nerves. So know when it's time to leave the room. Pretty easy solution. We also have the moon in Cancer sextiling Uranus in Taurus. So it's a good day to communicate with close friends online. It's also a good day to cook your own meals rather than going out to eat. And the reason for this is safety, because you may find that if you go out to eat on that day, you end up with an unexpected case of food poisoning. Whereas if you cook and take the time to do it right, you avoid that. Also on the 9th, that moon in Cancer is squaring Chiron in Aries. So those same close people might irritate your wounds. Notice the theme and the pattern here. And that Mars in Taurus is squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, meaning that the 8th, the 9th, and the early part of the 10th is a good time to spend time by yourself. On the 10th, the moon moves into Leo and is sextiling Mercury in Gemini. So it's all about getting out and having some fun with friends, lighthearted fun. Your creativity is probably stronger than normal. You might have above average success when it comes to games of fortune and games of chance. It's all about the fun and the optimism and the playfulness. And on that day, we've got that same moon in Leo trining the north node of the moon in Aries. So the more you engage in your creativity and your inner child, the more you are creating spiritual growth going forward. On the 11th, that moon in Leo sextiles the Mercury-Venus conjunction in Gemini that we were talking about earlier. This continues the theme from the 10th, where we find that the more creative you are, the more optimistic you are, the more it might invite money and romance and creativity into your life. If you need sources of inspiration, I would encourage you to talk to your friends on that day. But that same moon in Leo is squaring Uranus and Taurus, which I've already talked about for the first 10 days of this month ad nauseum. And the way the moon in Leo comes along is it's basically saying you might feel playful and creative in your daily life. That does not necessarily translate over well to how you interact with people on the internet. Another way to look at this moon in Leo square Uranus in Taurus is just because you might be playful and lighthearted and optimistic and fun does not necessarily mean everything's going to go smooth. You'll still have to deal with hiccups that come up in your daily life. The moon in Leo is also trining Chiron in Aries. Now we turn a corner with that healing. Up until this point for the month, it's been about having those wounds kind of thrown in your face and exposed to you to deal with. But now on the 11th, it's a good day to formulate a plan for healing going forward. We also have the Sun, which is conjunct Venus, also conjunct Mercury. So we continue that theme of light-hearted frivolity, getting along with others, communicating with others, and getting something positive out of it for yourself, whether it's money, creativity, romance, whatever the case may be. On the 12th, the moon moves into Virgo and it's trining Mars in Taurus. So, hate to tell you, but with that moon trine Mars on the 12th, it's all about getting back to work. The fun has been had with that moon in Leo. Now it's time to roll up your sleeves and get the data processing done. Get the deep cleans done. Get the system clean done, whatever the case may be. And on the 12th, the moon in Virgo is squaring Jupiter in Gemini. So it's saying work first, then play. Don't play and then think you'll get the work done later. No, 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 no. Use the play as a reward for what you have accomplished earlier in the day. Now, the 13th brings that same moon in Virgo, but now it's squaring Venus, which is conjunct the Sun, and conjunct Mercury in Gemini. So, yeah, continue getting to work in your daily life, but it's probably going to irritate the shit out of you because you can't maximize conversations with others on that day. Or perhaps you spend all day talking with people and you realize at 8 o'clock at night, oh shit, I didn't get anything done today. And then you mentally beat yourself up when in reality it's your own damn fault for not having discipline. So there's a few different ways to interpret that on the 13th. Now, also on the 13th, we've got that moon in Virgo opposing Saturn in Pisces. So the more hard work you do, the more you feel like your connection with your emotions and spirituality is kind of at a decline. And that's true, but it's a temporary thing. We're talking about the moon here, so that's only going to last a day or so. And all of these, Virgo, Gemini, and Pisces, and all these aspects tell us that there's a mutable T-square in the air for the 13th. A mutable T-square means overall it's going to be a challenging day. There's no sugarcoating it. It's not a growth opportunity. It's a fucking problem. Now, the good news is with a mutable T-square, it's not that intense. It's just a series of little things that come up that really grate on your nerves. And the way to deal with this short-lived T-square, and it lasts a couple days, but the way to deal with it is going through the life, death, rebirth process. So it's a great time to end bad and old habits. It's a great time to start new habits. It's a great time to say, okay, that was me. Now the 13th and 14th, this is the new me. So it can be a defining moment in your life for at least the month, if not going forward. On the 15th, the moon moves into Libra, which immediately right there kills the mutable sign T-square. And that moon in Libra is trining Jupiter in Gemini. So it's a good day to reach out and talk to people. Forming new relationships, whether it's professional or personal, is a good way to proceed. It's a good day to brainstorm. You might get more inspiration than normal when you talk to people. But that moon in Libra is opposing the north node of the moon that's retrograde in Aries. So as much as you play the diplomat, you might find your indecision works against your spiritual growth. You might find that the more you spend time with people, you're not able to push ahead with your own goals that you are trying to begin. However, that moon in Libra is also trining Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, which means the bigger picture on this day, since we're talking about Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius, is it's a grand trine in air. So it's all about talking to people. It's all about getting inspiration from your conversations. It's all about lighthearted and fun. It's all about spending time with others and brainstorming. It's not so much about getting the practical work done. Remember, you just did that while the moon was in Virgo. But rather, this is a good time for socialization, brainstorming, anything that has to do with figuring out where you are and where you want to go in life. That's good to do on the 16th, but don't expect any grounded, practical kind of results from it. You have to develop those later. On the 17th, and this is trippy, on the 17th, we've got Venus moving into Cancer, which means on the evening of the 16th and the early part of the 17th, your romantic relationships might get challenged. There might be issues when it comes to the money in your pocket, not necessarily the prosperity that you have created for yourself. And then 3 hours later, Mercury moves into Cancer as well. So effectively, at the same time that Venus moves into Cancer, Mercury moves into Cancer, which means the evening of the 16th and the first half of the 17th might feel like everything's going wrong. There's problems in the romantic life, there's problems with your creativity, there's problems with your money, there's problems with personal communication, especially when it comes to your close friends. So by midday on the 17th or mid-afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world, you may feel like pulling your hair out because nothing's going right, but I assure you, this is short-lived. It will only last a day or so. Also on the 17th, the moon in Scorpio is opposing Mars in Taurus. So make sure that your temper doesn't fuck things up in the physical world. Also, make sure with all that Mars energy that if someone makes you angry, you respond appropriately, not necessarily how you want to. We've also got that moon in Scorpio squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, which means we've got a fixed sign T-square happening between the moon, Mars, and Pluto. This is actually pretty damn intense, so take notes, because Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Mars is forming a square to Pluto. Both Pluto and Mars rule Scorpio, so the underlying theme of the 17th is Mars. And that's good and bad. On one hand, if you're agitated, the 17th is a good day to get stuff done. But if you've got a hair-triggered temper, the 17th is when it could go off in epic style. Watch out for accidents. You might be more accident-prone than normal. And on that day, we've got that conjunction between Mercury and Venus in Cancer squaring Neptune in Pisces. So you might feel like your intuition is at odds with your spiritual self. You might feel like your intuition is at odds with where you're going spiritually or what your psychic skills are telling you. We also have that same conjunction, Mercury and Venus in Cancer, trining the moon in Scorpio. So it's another good day for initiations. It's another good day for taking the initiative. It's a good day for passion and embracing passions. And that same Mercury-Venus conjunction in Cancer is sextiling Mars in Taurus. And that's going to last until the 30th. So you got 2 weeks of that. So in other words, the 17th is a good day to embrace the idea of show me, don't tell me. If you got people that are telling you X, Y, and Z, well, that's all well and good. Make them show you to prove that they're serious about it and that they've got the skills to pull it off. On the 18th, that moon in Scorpio moves into a trine with Saturn in Pisces. So we revisit the theme from earlier in the month of spiritual initiations. The 18th is a good day for ritual and ceremonial magic as well. Now, on the 19th, the moon in Sagittarius opposes Jupiter in Gemini. So you might find that your big mouth gets you into trouble. And for those of you that embrace that bullshit attitude of, I don't like to think through what I say, I like to be just as surprised at others when things come out of my mouth. Well, you might find today it gets you jacked in the jaw, deservedly so, because you're too fucking lazy and lack too much self-control to watch your words. Jupiter in Gemini is saying, hey, things are good. Think things through. Talk to the right people. Keep it shallow. Moon in Sagittarius says, I'm going to use that as an excuse to be brutally honest. Can you tell the theme here? It's maturity and responsibility. The moon is Sagittarius, it's the traveler's moon, it's the wanderer's moon, it's the nomadic moon, it's the truth speaker moon, it's the spiritual moon. But if you let that govern your day, it's going to screw you over when it comes to dealing with other people, and that's just the way it is, and you fucking deserve it. Also on that day, that moon in Sagittarius is trining Neptune in Pisces in an out-of-element trine, telling us that in order to avoid all those possible issues with talking to other people on the 19th that I just so floridly described, you might just want to meditate. You might want to go on a shamanic journey. You might want to take a trip to some place that inspires your soul and uplifts your spirits, spending time away from people. Know your limits and work within them, or do your best to expand them. On the 20th, hey, it's solstice. Happy summer solstice to the northern hemisphere of the planet. Happy summer solstice to the winter solstice to the southern hemisphere of the planet. So I got to think about things. My mind is in two different hemispheres right here on the solstice. In the northern hemisphere is the day of maximum light. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the day of maximum dark. So no matter where you're at, celebrate solstice. The sun moves into Cancer, so it's a good day to spend with close friends and close family. But that also means there might be some shakeups or some hiccups there early in the day. There's now a Cancer stellium, which is happening between Mercury, Venus, and the Sun. So we shift from the Aries Gemini stelliums to now Gemini in Cancer. And I'm pretty sure it's clear by now, if you've been watching these videos for a while, those stelliums always happen and they always move forward through the zodiac. So earlier in this year, it was Capricorn and Aquarius. Then it was Aquarius and Pisces. Then it was Pisces and Aries. Then it was Aries and Taurus. Then it was Taurus and Gemini. And then it was Aries in Gemini, because what was in Aries were slower moving chart points. And now it's Gemini in Cancer. So then when you follow the pattern through, then the next stelliums you're going to get are Gemini and Leo, because what's in Gemini are slower moving. And then after that, it will be Cancer and Leo. And then Leo and Virgo, and it goes through the zodiac like that. Isn't it funny how all that works? It's almost like it was created or something. So long story short, with the Cancer stellium, it's saying this is a good day to spend time with close friends and your immediate family. Your intuition is going to be sharper than normal. Spending time at home, doing things around the house would be good. But all of this stellium activity says one of the dangers to avoid is closing yourself off in your home and not getting along with the outside world. Of course, it's also saying that spending time with close friends and your immediate family could work against you, and it might be too much of a good thing. Spending too much time at home and not enough time at work. So you want to balance it out. On solstice, we also have the moon in Sagittarius squaring Saturn in Pisces. So this could be a little bit of a spiritual wake-up call. We've got that same moon in Sagittarius trining the North Node in Aries. telling us that it's a good day to figure out where you go from here, spiritually speaking, and that your fate ultimately lies in your hands. And that moon in Sagittarius is trining Chiron in Aries. So the more you embrace your spirituality, the more you do some journeying that's good for your soul, the more you're actually achieving spiritual growth and progress that you can take forward with you after this life. On the 21st, we got the full moon. So we got solstice and full moon at about the same time. Remember what I said about the 17th being an intense day. The 20th and the 21st will also be an intense time. With that full moon on the 21st, the moon in Sagittarius is squaring Neptune in Pisces. So even though you might be spiritually focused on things, Neptune in Pisces comes back around and says, okay, those are your spiritual goals. That's your spiritual direction. Are you sure you're looking at the picture clear enough? And by extension, that means the 21st is not a good day for meditation. It's a good day for doing. We've got Mercury in Cancer on that day, sextiling Mars in Taurus. So it's a good day to either get do-it-yourself projects done around the home, or it's a good time to work in the professional arena with small groups that have close connections, like a working team, rather than stepping out of your department and engaging in other areas of the corporation. On the 22nd, we've got the moon in Capricorn opposing Mercury in Cancer. So it's telling us that you might want to be emotionally responsible and detached, i.e. Capricorn moon. But then that means people think you're being cold when you're really not. You're just focused on what you have to do for you. Now, that also means other people might have problems with their emotions blinding their judgment and not seeing that you're doing what you need to do for you. They might just see that you're not giving them attention. On the 22nd, we've also got the moon in Capricorn trining Mars in Taurus, which gives us further indication that the 22nd is a good day, like when the moon was in Virgo earlier in the month, to focus on the work, being grounded, down to earth, practical, getting stuff done in the office, cleaning, all of those things. The 22nd is a good time to pick that back up. We've also got that moon in Capricorn sextiling Saturn in Pisces, and this combination tells us that the more you focus on work, the career, the occupation, the overall direction in life, the more you're growing, spiritually speaking, and the more you are better handling your emotions. And that same moon in Capricorn is squaring the North Node in Aries, telling us that yeah, you're probably going to have to put the spiritual work on the back burner for the 21st or the evening of the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. But so what? Sometimes you got to get your hands dirty, and these are those days to do it. On the 23rd, we've got the moon continuing to be in Capricorn, and now it's conjunct Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So we have an out of sign conjunction. On one hand, this is good because it's saying if you've been looking at making any changes professionally speaking, this is the day to do it and look for opportunities that better society. On the other hand, it's saying if you've been pushing down emotions regularly, they're going to come to the surface and erupt on the 23rd, so watch out. Taking matters into your own hands is a thought to be careful with on the 23rd. Also on the 23rd, the moon in Capricorn is trining Uranus and Taurus, so it is a good time to make changes, make waves in your professional life. And that same moon in Capricorn is squaring Chiron in Aries, so it's bringing the reminder you might have to confront your own fears and shortcomings in order to achieve personal and professional success. And that moon, you see how that moon just keeps firing things off on the 23rd? And that moon in Capricorn is sextiling Neptune in Pisces, which is saying you've got this vision for your professional life and you've got this vision for your overall direction in life. How are you going to put it into practice? How are you going to make it happen? Because the clock's ticking. We all get a finite number of days to suck air. So it's better to say, I've got this vision and I'm putting it into work, rather than, I got this vision and I'm going to mentally masturbate about how good it feels and expect it to come without putting in any work. On the 24th, we've got another active day. We've got the moon in Aquarius conjunct Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, so expect your emotions to be stronger than normal, expect your temper to be shorter than normal, and expect all of this to be true when you're interacting with society and groups of people. Now, that same conjunction is squaring Mars in Taurus, so you might find that the more people irritate you, the more it affects your ability to get things done in your daily life. The moon conjunct Pluto retrograde is also sextiling Neptune in Pisces, reminding us that if communicating with society and groups of people is really getting on your nerves, perhaps today is a good day to take a mental health day and indulge in your creativity and your spirituality. That same conjunction is also trining Jupiter in Gemini, which is all about prosperity and the expansion of consciousness coming through conversations you have with others, which means it almost sounds like a contradiction between what I said at the first part about June 24th, and now I'm saying, no, you want to talk to them. So think about this. This is not an either-or situation. Schedule your time to communicate with others on the 24th. But don't let it take over your whole day. Or perhaps this is a good day to tell somebody off if they've had it coming. Or maybe somebody tells you off if you've had it coming on the 24th. And if that happens, instead of getting upset with them, do some inner reflection and see if they're right so that you can change your behavior and actually live an apology rather than just speaking an apology. Now, that same moon Pluto Aquarius conjunction is sextiling Chiron in Aries. That's going to be in play until the 26th, so you got about 3 days here to work with it. What it tells us is if you look at yourself through the lens of society, you might be able to achieve some personal, psychological, and inner healing. For example, you don't know how healthy or well you mentally are until you check out how you fit in with the masses. Case in point, a close friend of mine, many times through my adult life, has told me when I've told him about some crazy story that I lived through when I was younger, he has repeatedly told me, you know, normal people don't go through that, right? And me going, what? What are you talking about? Of course they do. I mean, I went through it, so it must be common to everyone. And he has to come along and say, no, what you went through was not common. It shifts my consciousness every time he does that. So I'm not saying judge yourself by society standards, but I am saying that the 24th through the 26th is a good time to see how your experiences line up with what the average person experiences. That can improve your ability to relate to others. It can give you a clearer perception on yourself, and it can remind you of your own uniqueness, but also expose some wounds that need healing. Now, the good news is, with that sextile there, you can say, oh, so I did a whole healing program within myself that most people don't even think about because my life experiences made me do that. Maybe I should be more tolerant of others. As Aleister Crowley has said before, to paraphrase, it is folly to think that the way one person approaches something is effective for everyone. These themes are good to remember, the 24th through the 26th. On the 25th, we get a lighthearted day. We get that moon in Aquarius squaring, dun, 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 Uranus and Taurus. So the 25th, your emotions might be stronger than normal. It's not a good day to vent on social media. If you're doing some sort of fast or some sort of dieting exercise and you think you got a handle on it, the 25th will be the litmus test for that. It might also mean that you're rolling down the highway, chatting with friends, and you get T-boned because you're not paying attention to the physical world in front of you. So make sure you stay out of your head a decent amount on the 25th. On the 26th, now we have a Pisces stellium with the moon, Saturn, and Neptune. So it's a little blip on the radar from earlier in the year when it was all about Pisces. And in this case, because Saturn is known as a malefic and Neptune is known as a malefic, these Pisces traits might not be that good. So on the 26th, watch out for escapism, watch out for bad habits, watch out for wanting to focus on the spiritual at the expense of the physical. We've also got the moon in Pisces sextiling Mars in Taurus, which means that we come back to the theme we've talked about a few times during this month, which is having a vision for your life and then putting forth the physical work to make it happen. That moon in Pisces is also squaring Jupiter in Gemini. So through talking to others, you might find that emotional wounds get triggered, or through talking to others, you get exposed to spiritual beliefs that make you question your own or revile theirs. So treat your conversations with people very, very carefully on the 26th. And that moon in Pisces is trining the Sun, Venus, and Mercury in Cancer. So in short, when you do the math there, on the 26th, we got 3 planets in Pisces, 3 planets in Cancer. It's all about the emotions. It's all about spirituality. It is all about the intuition and psychic development. It may be too much of a good thing. You might get lost in your emotions and it works against you. You might not see things clearly because you are overly emotionally invested in things. So while in general this is a good thing, it can be bad because it can be too much water. And remember, too much water can lead to drownings. And that's a warning for this day on the 26th. Be careful if you're around bodies of water. So if you're going to the beach, watch out. If you surf, watch out. If you're crossing a river on a bridge, watch out. The danger lies in the water. Hail Leviathan. On the 27th, we've got the moon conjunct Saturn in Pisces, so you might get a reminder of your own mortality. You might also have spiritual lessons thrown in your face, or as we say around here, you might get slapped with the universal clue by 4. You might also feel emotionally or spiritually insecure or weak, and none of that is true. It's just a good day to play things conservatively when it comes to your emotions and your spirituality. The moon in Pisces is sextiling Uranus in Taurus, continuing the theme of visualizing something and figuring out how to put in the work to make it happen. But with the sextile present now, it's saying that a good mantra for the day is to be open to unexpected blessings already on their way. Now that moon conjunct Saturn in Pisces is also trining Mercury in Cancer. So it's a good day to make yourself emotionally vulnerable to your close friends and family. It's a good day to align your intuition with your psychic skills. It's also a good day to realize your spiritual limits and working within them. For example, if you believe the idea that we're all one, then that does mean you can't say, we're all one, except for this group of people, I don't like them. No, we're either all one or we're not. Shut the fuck up if you think otherwise. That is a good thing to deal with on the 27th. Your own internal attitude towards subjects like that, but also where you draw the line spiritually. Sometimes it's a pain in the ass to be a Thelemite because you got to respect everybody's true will, even when you don't like it. On the 28th, an Aries stellium. Ooh, we went from that Pisces and Cancer stelliums just a couple days before to now an Aries Cancer stelliums. And in short, in the natural zodiac, Aries and Cancer do not get along well. So there may be some challenges on the home front on the 28th. The moon in Aries is conjunct Neptune in Pisces, so we've got an out of sign and out of element conjunction here, which means you might be delusional when it comes to seeing things, or perhaps you drink to excess, or you indulge in your addiction to excess and it works against you, or maybe someone sets your temper off and you want to lose yourself in a bottle. Any kind of ideas like that are a danger on the 28th. The moon in Aries is squaring the sun in Cancer. So as much as you might want to move forward with things, you might find that today is not the day to do it. Or you might find today is the day to do it, and it's going to ruffle feathers of people that are close to you. We've also got that moon in Aries squaring Venus in Cancer. So as much as you want to embrace all those Aries traits emotionally, it could work against you romantically speaking. It could work against you when it comes to your close family and immediate loved ones. And a very practical illustration for this is if you're doing home improvement projects around the house and you lose your temper, then on this day with that moon Aries square Venus Cancer, you might find that when you lose your temper, you undo all the work you've already done. Now, that moon, part of that stellium is that moon conjunct the north node of the moon, and Chiron's also involved in that stellium, and it's sextiling Jupiter in Gemini. So it's a good day to look for healing through casual conversations you have with others. So, for example, a good day to meet up with your therapist is the 28th. Or maybe talk to friends and say, this is how I'm looking at a situation. Am I right? Or am I missing something? Get external feedback on the 28th. On the 29th, we've got that same Aries stellium happening. The moon conjunct Chiron in Aries. So having your psychological wounds thrown in your face and then you getting upset about it might be a trait of that. Yes, that also means it's a good day for healing, though. The moon in Aries is squaring Mercury in Cancer, so you might find that if you just tell someone how it is directly, that it hurts their feelings. Or maybe they want to have a heart-to-heart conversation with you, and you can't bring yourself to do it, and that causes problems. So adaptability and sensitivity are two main words of this. And finally, on the 29th, we've got Saturn stationing retrograde in Pisces, and that stationing period is going to be through early July. So, yes, we had a Mercury retrograde earlier this year. A theme that has been running through all of June is Pluto retrograde. Now Mercury is back to direct. Now Saturn is retrograding. And I point this out because it's been very light on the retrograde so far this year. When Saturn is stationing retrograde, you can expect heavy-handed karma to be thrown in your face, particularly as it has to do with spirituality and emotions. You might also find lessons learned through water. So, for example, if you like swimming and the last time you did it, you went into the deep end and you got caught in an undertow and you barely escaped with your life, then the 29th is going to come along to say, did you learn that lesson because you're back at the pool now? Are you going to be ignorant enough to go back in the deep end, or are you going to ease into it slowly? So we can be talking about physical water here as much as symbolic water. Stationary retrograde Saturn in Pisces means you can also watch out for people from your past coming back, particularly those that have to do with your emotional state of being or your spiritual journey. Yeah, there's a little heads up for you. Or perhaps it's a teaching you learned when you were not as far along on your path as you are now. Now you come back to revisit the teaching and you either keep it or kick it to the curb. Few different ways to interpret it, but pay attention because the 29th, the 30th, July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, even up through July 4th, it's going to be full of spiritual and past life and emotional karma to see if you've learned your lessons. And then finally, speaking of the 30th, we've got the moon shifting into Taurus away from all that Aries energy, thank fuck, and it's squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So you might want a return to normality, and the 30th is saying, yeah, good luck with that. It's going to separate you from the masses of society. And I'm sure some people listening to this will say, well, good. But that kind of makes it hard to get things done, doesn't it? So The moral of the story here is an internal conflict between the way you've always approached things versus the changes you need to make to adapt to a changing society. Or perhaps you recognize where your outdated beliefs as it has to do with handling your emotions are and what you need to do to transform them to align with a species that is growing up with or without you. On the 30th, we also have Mars in Taurus sextiling Saturn in Pisces. That will continue until about July 6th or so. This tells us that now that Saturn stationing retrograde has come around and opened your eyes to some karmic things and some emotional and spiritual lessons that you need to learn, the 30th is a good day to put new practices into place that have to do with healing those or addressing those. So June starts off with a lot of gaiety and hey, fun in the air, and let's talk to all the people and let's engage the creativity and let's have that fun. To the end note of Saturn and Pisces coming around saying, hey, hope you had fun with that. Now, what'd you learn from it? Hey, I hope you had that month to catch your breath, because now when July starts, you're going to be right back in the thick of it with heavy emotions and karma. So June was all about shifting your consciousness and shifting your perspective through human interactions. July is saying, okay, you just collected all of that information in June. How does it change you emotionally and spiritually? And if you look at this or you hear me say this and you're like, doesn't change me at all, well, then I guarantee you failed the test. You missed the point. This is one of the things that astrology does. It gives you the answers, then it gives you the test to see if you can apply what you've learned. One of the scariest things you can encounter is someone who says, I'm the same way at age 50 now that I've been my whole life. That's a red flag. That's really a red flag, because it shows a lack of growth. It doesn't show anything fucking positive. Keep that in mind, not only when you're dealing with others, but also when you're dealing with yourself. I told a friend of mine at Oak Spirit Sanctuary's Beltane Festival that I was at in the beginning of May. You know, one of the things that happens as you get older is you get tired of the bullshit. And he laughed when I said that. And I said, that includes your own bullshit. With that happy note, thank you to Adam Knox and the Cult of You for the platform and the video editing. To the video editor I've never met that has all these wonderful graphics, thank you. You do a fantastic job. Remember, for the month of June, the daily horoscopes will continue to go out on multiple pages on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, X. The monthly sun sign horoscopes will be up on the website, 418ascendant.com. Pretty much you name it, it's out there. It's a good time for a solar return chart if you got a birthday coming up. So if you're interested in that, hit me up while you're checking out this video. Wherever you see it, click like, subscribe, and share. And until we chat again, may we all receive blessings of good health, prosperity, and success as we move forward in the next month of our lives, as Jupiter comes along into Gemini and says, let's light up the sky. Namaste.